Okay, it's going to be a review of the Bash in Berlin from Germany. I've been waiting the whole year for this pay-per-view as soon as it was announced. I just knew, Gunther was going to be involved in something that was really memorable. And honestly, I got to say, like, the reaction in terms of, them treating Gunther like he's whatever you want to call it, a god, a hometown hero, whatever it was. It really wasn't what I was expecting. I was expecting, them to treat Gunther, like they treated Drago in Russia for Rocky IV. Like, that's the reaction I was expecting. Didn't quite get that, but this is still a fun show. Amazing crowd. Really, really, really fun show. I just wouldn't say it was, one of the best pay-per-views of the year. But it's still a quality show. I still think it was a great show. Really not a lot of issues with it. But let's get right down to it. They did about 13,000, the Uber Arena in Berlin. Cody actually said the biggest arena gate in WWE history. Wow. But we're gonna get right to it, man. First match of the night. We actually had Cody defending the belt against Kevin Owens. I love this match, man. I love babyface versus babyfaces matches. There is just, no shenanigans here. They cut some really, really good promos, leading up to this thing where, basically Cody just said to Kevin, he basically told him that he loved him, and Kevin brought up how much Dusty did for him. And, they brought up the fact that Kevin, you just never know. Like, he always turns on, whether it be Sami Zayn. He said everybody deserved it except Kofi Kingston. They had all these different guys. I think they mentioned Jericho. They mentioned Cena. All these guys that, Kevin just gave a cheap shot to. Kofi's the only one that didn't deserve it. So I loved a lot of the build up here. And it was good. They didn't really pull the trigger with Kevin turning heel. And it was kind of a breath of fresh air. I really like where Kevin's at right now. So in some ways, I don't think you have to have, the forced heel turn every time. If they want to do a slow build to the eventual Kevin Owens heel turn, I'm sure Kevin and Cody, could deliver a great story. But this was really interesting, man. I mean, they focused on Cody, having a bad knee. Kevin pointed it out, and then Cody tried to deny it. He's like, Kevin, I'm fine. My knee's 100%. But when you watch the match, when Cody tried to do the Cody cutter, his knee gave out, and, Kevin was thinking about it. He was, thinking about, doing the power bomb on the ring apron, just like he did to Sammy. But he just kind of held back. He showed, I guess the word I'm looking for is empathy. I don't want to say sympathy, but I think empathy is more of the appropriate word. But yeah, man, really enjoyed it. Kevin looked very frustrated after he came up short, but at the same time, he didn't, retaliate. He looked very frustrated, but, he still hugged Cody. He pushed the cameraman away, but I thought the match was a lot of fun, though. Incredible crowd. Actually, there was a lot of Kevin Owens chants here. There was a lot of Let's Go Cody chants, but for the most part, there was really a lot of support for Kevin. Too much great stuff to go over, but, Kevin hit the stunner a couple of times. Cody kicked out of it. I mean, they didn't really do anything too crazy. It was just a simple, fun match. Lots of kickouts at the crossroads and the stunners. Kevin did do the fisherman's buster off the top rope. That was probably the biggest spot in the match, but, I loved it. Very competitive, but at the same time, friendly, entertaining, hot crowd. Definitely one of the better things on the show. All right, next up we actually had Isla Dawn and Alba Fyre defending the tag team titles against Jade and Bianca Belair. I mean, it was okay. This is like your typical, formula WWE tag team style match. You had, Fyre and Dawn really trying to just isolate Bianca, keeping her away from Jade throughout the whole match. There was actually a beautiful, I forget if it was Fyre or Isla Dawn. I think it was Alba Fyre. She actually did like a tornado DDT just to keep Jade, from getting the hot tag. I thought that was really, really cool. But yeah, Bianca, She did make the hot tag to Jade. Eventually, her and Jade hit a nice double team move with Jade actually hitting almost like a deadlift German to get the victory there. So nice combination spot to end this thing. But I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was great. I would say this. I think the crowd was probably the weakest during this match. But Jade even said that, she fed off the crowd better in this match than, anything in recent memory. So, definitely give them credit. Don't want to spend too much time on it. It was probably the weakest thing on the show, but, Jade and Bianca win the tag titles back after losing them in Scotland where they didn't get pinned. So there we go with that. All right, next up we had CM Punk taking on Drew McIntyre. This is a strap match. I was hoping that this would just be a strap match with, pinfall or submission. We've seen that before. I can't think of an example, but we've definitely seen strap matches where they're just using the strap as a weapon. You can still beat the guy by pinning him. This is similar to, JBL and Eddie from Great American Bash, where you still had to touch the turnbuckles, and it'd be a red light and a green light. So you had to touch the turnbuckle, 4 times to get the victory. I think the problem is, I think that works better for a championship match. For like a blood feud or a feud that has a lot of heat and tension. I just don't think it works for that. But you get the point. I think part of the reason why they did it is, you didn't have to have Drew get pinned. So in some ways, I think it worked quite well. Punk is great in, dog collar matches, strap matches. I didn't even realize it, but he won the OVW title, as Michael Cole alluded to, in a strap match. He had the strap match with Umaga. I don't remember it, but, that sounds right. He had the strap match with Umaga at Extreme Rules, the same night he cashed in on Jeff Hardy. So, nice little history lesson for Michael Cole. And, yeah, man, I thought it was good. I think it was a good match for Punk. I think the strap match kind of alleviated him of some of the pressure of just having a singles match and relying on wrestling. This way you can, tell the story with, just hitting straps and having to be a little bit more vicious. I mean, Punk is good at it. He's really good at, knowing when to yank back on the strap, just like he did with Raven. Off the bleachers, which was nasty. And, there's the same thing with Drew here. When he was in trouble with some of the claymores, he was able to yank back on the strap and execute the go to sleep. So it was really good. I think, not as, to me, in my personal taste, not as memorable as their SummerSlam match. I just thought the SummerSlam match had a great crowd. I just thought the tension there was unbelievable. But, this was good. This was still, very well executed. I love some of the stuff that they did here with the sharpshooter. Punk kind of paying tribute to Brett. Brett was huge in Germany. They even mentioned that. Cody even had to talk about that in the press conference because the German media kept asking about Brett. So, got to dig into the archives. There's a lot of, Bret Hart stuff in Germany on the network. I think there's a match with Triple H there, but not to take away from the match though. Punk executed a beautiful sharpshooter. I just thought some of the go to sleeps came off great. It did get a little bit bloody, but it wasn't like over the top, in terms of, Punk getting down and dirty like he did with MJF where he's bleeding buckets or anything like that. I thought this was a nice, simple match. I think Punk really needed a good victory here. This is Punk's first win in 10.5 years, maybe his first win on pay-per-view since that Shield handicap match at TLC 2013. So, yeah, that's a long fucking time ago. So, Punk really needed the victory. The ending was cool. It was like he hit it was almost like he had to hit a go to sleep before every time he touched the turnbuckle. So they tried to protect McIntyre. They gave it a nice realistic feel. And, McIntyre looked good too, man. Some of those claymores look vicious. So, good match. In terms of bad blood though, I think most people want to see a Hell in a Cell between Punk, and McIntyre. And I think that's what you'll probably get. I would be really, really surprised if they go back to Punk and Rollins. Because Rollins, the stuff with Bronson Reed, really is going to take Rollins away from this feud right here. But, I like the idea of going back to Punk and Rollins because of the history. When you look back at the first Bad Blood, Shawn was the special guest referee. He cost Taker at SummerSlam. It was the same thing here. You got Rollins as a special guest referee costing Punk. It'd be cool if they go back to that. I don't know if it has to be in Hell in a Cell, but, when you look back at Bad Blood, all 3 pay-per-views have been, all 3 main events were Hell in a Cell matches. So, I would assume that, a Hell in a Cell would make sense for Bad Blood. But, Punk and McIntyre isn't the only match that's going to have Bad Blood attached to it. You could do Damien Priest and Finn Balor. You could do Cody. Obviously maybe you could do Roman and Solo in a Hell in a Cell. I mean, who knows? But I don't think it has to be a Hell in a Cell once we get to Bad Blood. But if the only one that will really make sense is Drew and Punk. But we'll see what happens. But I'm glad that they're bringing it back. It's in the traditional spot of the classic from '97. So that's pretty damn cool. All right, next up we have the Judgment Day of Liv Morgan and Dominik taking on Damien Priest and Rhea Ripley. I thought the match was a lot of fun. Incredible crowd reaction here. I thought the crowd was great. Dominik got a lot of heat out there. They're actually chanting, "Who's your daddy?" There was a lot of Eddie, stuff going on from Rhea, and, Dominik was actually mocking Eddie, which really doesn't make a lot of sense. But, this felt like an old school crowd. It felt like an older crowd. The fact that they even remember that Eddie, came out and said that he was his father. It's amazing that they even remember that because it's almost 20 years ago. But I think the match is a lot of fun. Give Liv Morgan credit. She really impressed me by some of the stuff she busted out here. The one move that she did that made me jump out of my seat. Well, not really, but it was almost like an abdominal stretch. It was almost like a Oklahoma roll into an abdominal stretch into a crucifix. It was really cool. It looked like a lucha-esque move. So she busted out some cool stuff there. But, this was just really all about, giving Rhea Ripley, her revenge. It's almost like Damian Priest was just there to give the assist. But it's just a nice feel-good babyface match from them. It kind of reminded me of like Triple H and China as babyfaces, if that makes any sense. But yeah, very overbooked. You had the Judgment Day coming out, but you still got a nice feel-good victory. You actually had, Rhea and, Damian Priest just doing moves together, the double razor's edge, that came off sweet. The finish came off great with, Rhea getting the revenge with the riptide. I mean, it wasn't a great match. I'm not a huge fan of intergender matches, but, this was just fun, had high energy. The Judgment Day interference, I thought it actually made the match a little bit more interesting. So there we go with that. And on to the main event. This is what we've been waiting for all year long. We got Gunther defending the world title against Randy Orton. In the main event, they go 35 minutes. This is a rematch from King of the Ring. You know what? It's funny, man. I actually like the King of the Ring match better. I think it worked better with Gunther controlling the match. I think Orton selling at King of the Ring was really, really good. It was just... When I go back to that match, I think that match is underrated. I think too many people slept on, the King of the Ring this year because it was King and Queen of the Ring. It felt like a Disney movie, and I think that's why it's kind of going to go so slept on. So yeah, I like the match that Orton and Gunther had at King of the Ring, but this is a little bit different. The atmosphere was a little bit weird here. Obviously Gunther got a lot of fan support, but it wasn't like overwhelming though. The funny thing is Orton thought he was going to get booed out of the building, and it didn't happen. Like he started like laughing at first because there were a little bit of boos, but then there was like a lot of RKO chants, and there was like it felt like it was more pro Randy than pro Gunther. I mean, there was a part of the match where it was like, "Let's go Gunther, RKO." But, it really was 50-50. And if you're going to ask me, there were times where, Randy just almost had all the fans on his side. It was incredible. I really wasn't expecting this. But, 35 minutes. That's a long time. All right. So I could see people, not really caring for this match. I still think it's a quality main event. I think it's a solid 4-star match. I can't give it anything more than 4. I could see a lot of people just, giving this less than 4. If it all depends on personal taste. Orton for a lot of people is very hit or miss, and he's hit or miss for me as well. There are times where I think he's like the most talented, dude in the world. Like, SummerSlam 2004, for example. I love that main event. And there's other times where he leaves me cold as ice. The WrestleMania 25 main event, for example. So, it totally depends on how you feel about Orton. If I really thought, I'll be honest with you. I was a little bit disappointed that they went back to Orton. I figured, it'd be a little bit unpredictable to go back to Orton because, you think maybe he wants his win back. So that made it unpredictable. And then, this month marks the 20th anniversary where he won the world title. So I figured, all right, you never know. Maybe they might do some type of swerve where Orton turns heel in the, foreign territory. I thought maybe that's a possibility. But, Gunther successfully retains. They made this more of a realistic, type of match with, Randy, going to work over the, on Gunther's arms and his wrist. So you saw Gunther just doing a lot of selling. Randy was just very, very methodical. But it was good though. I liked what they were going for. I think the crowd was so good that it kept you engaged. I mean, it was a little bit slow paced, but some of the stuff that they did was good. It had a realistic feel. Orton just staying on his knees to avoid getting powerbomb was good. Gunther just not having enough strength in his arms to execute Orton for the powerbomb. And whenever they did hit a big move, whether it be Gunther with the powerbomb or, Randy with the RKO, they felt like huge spots, especially the RKO. The RKO came off great. The reaction for the RKO was even, hotter than it was at SummerSlam against, Benoit. I mean, the table bump was awesome. Randy is able to, use the steel steps to get leverage so he could suplex Gunther through the table. He doesn't go through the table at all, Randy. It's just Gunther going through the table. But, the ending was sweet, though. The ending was pretty sweet. Gunther really counters the RKO into a series of chops. He's able to chop his neck once and then lock in a sleeper. Then he uses the Bryan Danielson elbow blows to kind of put him away with the sleeper. So, yeah, I mean, it's not the most entertaining match in the world. I'm not going to say it has a lot of replay value. It's a solid match, though. It's good. I think, if you go into the match expecting, like Joe versus Kabashi or maybe Walter versus Dragunov from NXT, you're going to be really disappointed. But if you could just expect like a slow burn, a simple slow burn, then it's pretty good. But I will say this. I think Orton at this stage at 44 years old, actually, I'm a little bit baffled that he chose to come back with so much muscle mass and so much, he looks really big. I mean, he's thick. I mean, he definitely doesn't look like he's in the best shape of his life, but, it's obvious that he did a lot of training just to put muscle, on his upper back, to protect it, to add stability. I'm just in favor of when guys get older, the Bryan Danielson approach where you go for more cardio and more speed. So you don't have all that muscle mass, bringing you down. Very similar to the Punk. I think Punk, he's kind of tried to blend a little bit of both, but I'm just in favor of, more cardio and more speed over the, the mass muscle, because it's just tough. It's tough to have a long match, carrying that much weight. But yeah, man, I mean, I thought it was cool. Gunther successfully retains. They do the code of honor, very similar to SummerSlam 2004. It's almost like a passing of the torch. Benoit and Orton did the code of honor. I mean, I love that, the way Benoit did it too. It's almost like Randy took a piece of him. So it wasn't as engaging as the SummerSlam 2004 main event, but it was good. They touched on some really personal issues, Gunther and Orton, if you've been watching Raw. Like, Gunther was taking shots at Orton for, being a disappointment and his whole family being a disappointment. But, considering all of that, like, I got to say, the ending came off great. So, yeah, I think this was a fun show. I mean, it doesn't have any like match of the year candidates, but everything is pretty much good. Fun atmosphere. A little bit disappointing that you didn't get that Gunther, the whole crowd like totally behind Gunther like I was expecting. But, very predictable show in terms of like, who's going to win every single match. I mean, it was easy to predict, but it was still good. It was still fun. These premium live events, This is a hell of a ride that we're on. You know, just going into different countries, different territories that have never gotten pay-per-views before. And it's just really interesting to see how the crowd, you know, appreciates them and reacts to them. So I'll just end it right there. That's Bash in Berlin, and I'm out. All right.